Welcome to the Nebrasketball Brunch Show. I am Jack Mitchell. That is Kaleb Henry. And we are ready to go live on the I-80 Club YouTube channel, live on the Husker Max YouTube channel, and ready to break down, I would say normally a successful week of Nebrasketball, but because of the Thanksgiving holiday, it has been 2 weeks since we've done a show, Kaleb. And my, how things have changed in 2 weeks. And so Nebraska, of course, to refresh your memory, and a lot of people have forgotten this, Nebraska beat Creighton, I believe. Yeah, 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks ago today that this happened, if I'm understanding this right. November 22nd. Nebraska over then number 14 Creighton 74-63. And Nebraska got that win. They also then played South Dakota, won 96-79. I was in attendance at that game. And then they beat North Florida Sunday night. So that was still quite a while ago.
I was in attendance for that game.
You were at that game. 103-72. And we did do an after Nebrasketball on that one. Kaleb had to leave kind of early on that one because of the Nebraska volleyball NCAA placement write-up that he had to do. But anyway, we're here together, and a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about since last time that we got together. If any of you are joining us for the first time, welcome. Kaleb and I do this show other than the Thanksgiving week and maybe a very rare Friday here and there during the season. We'll do this show every Friday, I should say, from 11 to 12. And look back and look forward at the Nebrasketball week behind and weekend ahead. So please subscribe and like whatever YouTube page you're on. There's I-80 Club or Husker Max, or even better, both of them. That alerts when we get started. And you'll also be able to watch our live post-game shows that happen about 15 minutes after the end of Husker basketball games, including this upcoming one against Michigan State. About 15 minutes, you can get started on watching us, and we join Jacob Bigelow, and the three of us break down the game that just happened. We think it's the best post-game show for Nebraska basketball. We let you listen to the coach talk to Kent and Jake on the radio, preferably on KLIN, and then jump in with us. So let's delve in. So with all of that said, let's delve in to the week that was, and we start every week out, Kaleb, with a very important metric that people follow. They chart. It's kind of the pulse of the Nebrasketball season, although there are two very different pulses. At least there have been so far when it comes to this.
Yeah,
metric.
One of us has a pulse. That's the difference.
One of us has a pulse. What we do is we rate our own belief, Kaleb's and mine, about the likelihood Nebraska will make it to the NCAA tournament and how we're feeling that on a week-to-week basis. It'll go up, it'll down, it'll change based on what happened during the course of the previous week. I have been stuck on 3.5 the entire season up to 2 weeks ago. I've not changed. None of the games swayed me up to that point, whether they were the wins at home or the loss to St. Mary's. Kaleb, you have remind me of your journey, if you will.
I would think I was 9, then 9-1, then 9-1-5, and then I think after the loss, I think I became an 8-9.
Okay, you are very confusing to remember because you get into like wild decimal.
That's what my confidence is. That's where my rating is.
That's fine. That's fine. You do
judge
you.
me.
So I don't know. Do you want me to go first? You want to go first here with the new? I'm really interested to see where you're going, to be honest.
Well, I feel like mine is more natural and people know where mine is going to be. You're going to find some kind of dumb reason to still be a 3.5. I'm a 9.2. I am back over 90%. I am up to a 9.2 on my confidence rating for Nebraska men's basketball getting back to the NCAA tournament.
Okay. So you move from an 8.9 to a 9.2. I mean, not a huge jump. You've been doing jumps down and up kind of in this range before, but I guess you already started pretty high.
And that's 9.2 is the highest I've been.
Right. That's the highest you've been overall. Okay.
Yeah, that's the highest I've been.
Okay. So after Creighton, South Dakota, North Florida, that moved Kaleb from an 8-9 to a 9-2. Still very, very confident overall that Nebraska will win the NCAA tournament. Okay. I was at a 3.5, so I was, kind of under 50%. I am moving, I would say, pretty significantly from 3.5. I will go from 3.5 to 5.5.
Ooh.
Now over the halfway mark, the win against Creighton. And not only that, I think the next 2 weeks played into this too, especially I think the last game against North Florida. I probably would have been at a 5, and I would say the North Florida game got me up the final 0.5. So I am now at a 5.5. I think there is a better than not chance.
Okay.
Right? I think there's a better than not chance, albeit slight, that Nebraska basketball makes the NCAA tournament. And I've gotten a lot of confidence in this team that I probably didn't have 2 weeks ago. And obviously that kind of happens when you go into Creighton and destroy a team that then went and destroyed Kansas a couple of weeks later in that same venue. So that's where I'm at right now. Pretty positive overall, at least compared to where I was last week. So update the charts, do everything else. Let's do it. And if you guys in our live chat, and by the way, people in our live chat are the ones in the Discord. Those are the ones we talk to during the show. If you would ever want to do super chats, we would get you in on that way. If you're just on YouTube, if you guys want to share your numbers with us as well, you can do that. Matt says, "Whoa, Jack's heart is open and vulnerable."
Yeah.
No.
Well, here's the thing with you, Jack. You had so much more room to move up than I did. So it would feel for me going to a 9-2, even with, so you get the win at Creighton, phenomenal. You go get that win, and then you dominate the next 2 games like you should have been dominating a lot of your non-conference opponents. But North Florida started to look a little bit trickier. But you absolutely rout your next 2 opponents, average 99.5 points. Outscore them over those 2 games by 40 some points or something like that. Yeah, I probably could have moved, I don't know, to like a 9.5 and 9.6, but that, like, you're really close to 100%. I'm already really high. For you, I was expecting you to go to a 4.5. I didn't expect a full 2-point jump out of you.
I didn't expect that win. I did not expect that win against Creighton. I mean, I didn't. In retrospect, maybe I should have. Although now I'm really confused about Creighton. Like I thought I knew what was happening with Creighton after that Las Vegas week, and then they just, housed Kansas 2 months ago, and so that definitely confused me a little bit in terms of who they are, and it made the win Nebraska had against them a little bit better. So no, but I'm I don't listen. There's no in the St. Mary's loss looks probably as good or better than it did when it happened too. And of course, that was a 1-possession loss at a neutral court in retrospect as well. So there just hasn't been anything. There has not been anything way below expectations yet this year, I don't think.
Right.
There was one of those early games was closer than it should have been. Definitely. There were a couple of those that were closer than it should have been, but they just haven't, there hasn't been any indication that, okay, wow, there are some serious flaws here with this team that I'm worried about. And so that has me right at 5.5. So we'll see. We will see.
I've got the chart. The chart has been updated.
Okay. You want to share that? Can you share that, or do you need me to?
Yeah, I can share it. You just have to move it in there.
There we go. Okay, so we are looking at the chart. God, here's the thing. Caleb's line barely. You've got to like zoom into that thing so otherwise it just looks like a straight line.
You got to look like it. You got to move around. You literally stayed at 3.5. You stayed at the same number. At least I fluctuated a little bit, and where that confidence kind of was, you just went, yeah, it's a 3.5.
That's how I felt.
No fun.
That's how I felt, and things have definitely changed. And it'll be interesting because it's kind of a weird situation schedule wise here, guys. Nebraska goes on like a 4-week string of playing one game per week or one game per weekend, essentially. And so we'll have one show a game here for the next 3 Well, until they get done in Hawaii, basically, because
right
here the schedule is they got Michigan State tomorrow. We're going to get into that. Then they have Indiana on Friday night, the 13th. And so we'll have one game to react to after that. And then the Indiana game that night. And then December 20th, I assume we'll do a show on December 20th.
Yeah.
Then we'll have the one Indiana game to react to, get ready for the Diamond Head Classic, and then they'll play the 3 games. So it's just going to be a single game. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of movement that we've got here. That I've got based on the singular Michigan State Indiana games. How much more could they make me positive or negative about things? We'll see. I need to see them. I don't know until I actually see those games happen. So
well, and it's especially with the game on Saturday, you're on the road in the Big Ten Conference. It's an early start. Like that's another thing to look at this. It's an 11 a.m. tip in East Lansing. So things are already weird because you think about how well Nebraska has played at all of these other times. 11 a.m. to open Big Ten Conference play. And I know for football, it's silly season has started, and there have been a lot of weird basketball scores over the course of this week, as Bigelow put in the Discord as well.
Yeah.
But to go open conference play at 11 a.m., like that's weird enough.
Right. Yeah. As Bigelow pointed out, a weird, or as Bigelow called them, drunk as hell results from the first group of Big Ten play. You had Iowa getting the buzzer beater. Otherwise, they were going to lose at home to Northwestern. And, of course, Iowa gets a buzzer beater to win that game, right?
And then didn't shake anyone's hand.
And you had Michigan beat Wisconsin on the road. And so Michigan looking good there. UCLA beat Washington. That was pretty much expected. Then you go to Wednesday. That was when you had Maryland just absolutely murder Ohio State. It ended up being 83-59, which was much closer than it was at halftime. You had Michigan State go into Minneapolis, win that game 90-72 by 18. I don't think that's a particular surprise. Minnesota really didn't keep that close at all, though. Oregon did go into USC and win that. And then last night, Penn State 81-70 over Purdue. And so Purdue starts with a loss in conference. And so that's kind of how the craziness of this very early, the old December 2 games of conference play have gone so far. So Michigan State already 1-0 here in conference. And then Nebraska coming in. But like you said, an 11 a.m. game. I don't know. I remember we were talking about this in the postgame show, and I don't know if you've gotten clarification on this yet. I don't think it was right, but on the radio postgame show right before we went on after Nebrasketball, I thought Kent was saying that the students will not be there for Michigan State. Have you heard anything else about that, or is that just because they're on like dead week, but I don't think they won't be there necessarily. They'll be on campus because they're about to start finals.
Right. I'm going to have to look at their academic calendar.
I did. They start finals next week, basically.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what that was in.
Maybe got a week off.
Or maybe it's just a fun, like it's a theme day, no student Saturday, right? they're giving away, I don't know. They're giving away something. That
no kids allowed.
Yeah. So that's. I already checked. Yeah, I don't know if that was. Maybe he was thinking it was Christmas break that was starting or holiday. Not they don't call it Christmas break, but semester break.
It's the Izzone holiday game.
Okay. Oh, the Izzone is the student section, so they'll definitely be there.
Which, when I click on that, it takes me to something for a Jackson annuity. So
nice. God,
way to have your links.
Michigan State knows how to party, don't they? Definitely.
Oh, okay. That's the game day sponsor for that too. Okay. What are we doing here?
This is good podcasting right here. Kaleb
navigating
the Michigan State website.
Well, if it, I know that's the sponsor. Okay, if there's a link, you should link the sponsor, and you should also link whatever the information on that being a holiday game.
Dress up and then wear Santa hats and they says like elves and stuff like that. Probably
should be different links right there.
I'm gonna guess that's probably what they do. And maybe Bigelow says Bigelow says holiday game, and he puts up the old elf sweater. Is Tom Izzo going to bust out the elf sweater and get teed up in it once again? One of my favorite holiday moments in college basketball history is getting teed up in the elf sweater. It'd
be nice.
We'll see. Izzo will probably get teed up, I would think, during this. We don't know about the students. They'll probably be there. Why would they not be there? They'll probably be there. We're not worried about it. It's 11 a.m.
The students are not like someone will be there.
Someone will be there. Yes.
Right. It's not going to be an empty Breslin Center.
It's not. Yeah, it's not gonna be like a COVID game. There will be fans there. It will be all of those things. But nonetheless, you're right. 11 a.m. game on a Saturday. The ultimate 11 a.m. game I always think about is when was it like the day after New Year's? Back in the Siobhan Shields, Parker, Ty Webster, I should say, era. They went to Maryland at 11 a.m. during like the holiday break, and it was the deadest gym I've ever I've ever seen. And Nebraska went and got an upset in Maryland and went on a little streak with that team at the beginning of conference play that year. I think they won at Indiana after that too, and then they were a little bit rough after all of that. But I don't know if it'll be that dead at the Breslin Center, but perhaps a little bit. But nonetheless,
there is no gym that can look like too empty to me after sitting in all of those COVID games.
Yeah, that's true.
Like after that, and I know that's been.
That's right. You went to those.
That's been 4 years now.
That's right.
That's been 4 years. So, but even then, the experience of that, of sitting in there and they're being like, well, their families are here and there's like 20 people in the crowd and they're cheering. And it's like, yeah, this is super weird, everybody. So now you go places and you're like, wow, they didn't have enough people show up and there's still like 5,000 people there.
Bigelow adds the Breslin Center was also the first place Pavelka used Bangarang. I recall that very well. That was when they upset him on a random Wednesday night, if I recall. Jack McVeigh maybe had a good game. And I had never heard it before. And that next day I made a remix of Ken Pavelka saying Bangarang along with the then dubstep actual song Bangarang by Skrillex. You can still find it on SoundCloud, I believe, if you Google around a bit. It's still there. It's still there.
Dubstep.
Yes. That was an entire genre of music that sounded like someone had just had too many burritos, basically. But nonetheless, Michigan State, like the season they've started out, Kaleb got wins, home games against Monmouth, one big in that one huge against Niagara. Then played Kansas, and I believe that was at a neutral site there. I remember watching it. Yeah, that was at a neutral site. They lost that 77-69 to Kansas, so that was their first loss. Then they went on, beat Bowling Green, beat Sanford. Pretty good win against Colorado, won that one 72 to 56. That would have been in Maui, I believe. Lost Memphis 71-63 in Maui. That was when Memphis got really hot and won a couple of games there. And then played North Carolina in their final game there the day before Thanksgiving. They win that one 94-91 in overtime. And then the only game that they've had since that Maui tournament was the one at Minnesota that we mentioned, where they won 92-72. So 7-2 on the season is Michigan State. Their NET ranking, I don't know if this helps people know how, kind of where they are, but their NET ranking right now, and I've got the latest one from this morning, is actually they're 41 and Nebraska's 40. They're a spot behind Nebraska in the NET rankings. Right?
Well, in Nebraska, without doing anything, dropped like 5 spots. Because Nebraska was up at 35.
Yeah, they were at 35. I hadn't looked at it since Monday. They were at 44 the last I had heard, but yeah, then they were all the way up to 35. Now they're at 40. So this does fluctuate a lot, and sometimes for reasons that seem a bit unknown early in the season. If you want to go by KenPom, if you're more of a believer in that right now as being a guide on the quality of teams, right now Nebraska is at 44 in that one, and Michigan State is at 32.
Okay,
in that one. So not even, at least according to these rankings, even a top 25 team right now. despite having a very good schedule and being Michigan State. Now, the thing about Michigan State, without knowing anything about them this year, Kaleb, the thing we know about Michigan State is they can, pardon my way of describing it, they can dick around during, December, January, February, and then all of a sudden in March, they're a different team, which very often happens with Izzo teams.
Whether it's them doing whatever they do early in the year or late in the year, they can be a very annoying team. Like that's what it is. With Izzo as the coach, it just feels like they are a team that is going to be annoying in a way that it almost doesn't matter what their team's actual ceiling is for that year. They're going to find a way to be like, God, I don't really like playing these guys.
Yep.
And honestly, you like having a team like that. Like if you're a Michigan State fan, because it doesn't matter if you're a Final Four-esque team or you're just going to struggle to make the NCAA tournament, because you're going to play a lot of good teams and you're probably going to knock a couple of them off. And for Nebraska, you've got something being built really good right now. The last thing you want to do is go mess around with an annoying team at brunch time in East Lansing and leave with a loss and then not play again for several days.
Yep. I want to get to the large view, but real quickly, Michigan State, just looking a little deeper at him, leading scorer is Jaden Akins, senior, Farmington, Michigan. And so he's actually been there. He's unlike so many players, he's a guy who's been there for quite a while. And then their second leading scorer is somebody we know pretty well, Frankie Fiddler. He's their second leading scorer this year at 10.9. And then you got Jace Richardson, more of a pretty good shooter. He is he's a freshman guard from Denver. He's the third, and then Cohen Carr would be their fourth, and he is their forward. And Jackson Kohler is going to be the guy who's pulling down the rebounds for those guys. And he is the center, number 0, or the big guy, forward 6'9". He's from Utah. So those are the guys that we're looking at. Kohler was there last. He's been there for 2 years. So other than Fiddler, it's at least the top guys that they've got are people that Nebraska's seen or have been at Michigan State in a lot of cases for quite a while. So,
well, and for those potentially unfamiliar with Frankie Fiddler, 6'7" forward, Omaha native, went to Bellevue West, played at UNO, was absolutely lighting it up there. Both Creighton and Nebraska had recruited him, and he decides to go to the Big Ten, but not to Nebraska, goes to Izzo at Michigan State, where people forget that Fred Hoiberg did have a son play there as well.
Which he pointed out when in both his press conferences, Bigelow told us, and also he was like, well, he was like, people forget I got a son who played there. Like, well, no, he is familiar, obviously, with probably as familiar with any venue, other than Iowa State and Nebraska, in college basketball, having been there. So yeah, it's an interesting thing when you look at this Michigan State team. Fiddler's really the only guy in their main rotation, and there's probably one a little bit further down who's new there, but it's a lot of guys that have been around at Michigan State for a while. Trey Holloman has been there 3 years too. Wow.
Well, and the thing to look at, what is Nebraska? What would you say Nebraska has done really well so far through the first 7 games? They've gotten teams to get 3-point heavy and not shoot at a good clip from 3.
Yep.
In Michigan State, only shooting 25% from deep.
Yeah.
So if you can get them to take 43s, you're feeling good, right?
Yeah, it's going to be such a change, Kaleb, like strategy from what a lot of Nebraska's seen so far this year, right? I mean, so many teams against Nebraska, starting from UT, Rio Grande, to Creighton, to North Florida. I mean, Nebraska is seeing, it feels like, some of the who's who of the most aggressive 3-point shooting teams in the entire nation.
Right.
And that's not going to be Michigan State. So it'll be kind of a different, it'll be closer to St. Mary's probably than it has to anything else in terms of matchups, I would guess.
And by the way, Michigan State is only taking 23s a game.
Okay. 20. That's more than I thought, actually. That's more than I thought. How many threes per game is Nebraska putting up right now? just to give it kind of a comparison to put it in context in terms of how frequently these teams go to the 3-point line. And I'm efforting this too at the same time, by the way.
No,
so,
you're just fine. I got it here. Nebraska, a little more than 20.
A little more than 20.
22, between 22, 23. Yeah.
And Nebraska's shooting 31% from 3 compared to the 25%. Yikes. Wow. Nebraska's had some rough days from 3. So, and of course, Connor Season, we'll talk about him more in just a little bit. He's obviously boosted that up a whole lot right now. So, yeah, it definitely is
opponents. Like, you look at opponents, Michigan State's opponents are making 31% of their threes. So you're getting in a ballpark where you go, Nebraska can shoot some threes on these guys.
What is your thought about a matchup like that for Nebraska? Is that better, worse? And part of it I think probably is whether Berke plays, and we talk about that too. But what's your gut reaction when you hear it's a different type of a team than Nebraska's seen the last few weeks?
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily that different. I think it's what Nebraska's defense forces teams to do, because they do that kind of help and shuffle everyone through, and they'll switch on a lot of stuff. So Nebraska leaves it open where most of the time your best chance on offense is to take a 3. And that's why you've seen so many threes get shot against Nebraska. Some of them being because it's smaller schools. Their best chance to win a game is to get hot from 3. They just haven't done so. But a lot of it is the way Nebraska plays defense and having some size inside, and not just 6'10", 6'10", 7'1", whether or not Berke's there with one of your 6'10s, but the length you have at all of your positions. You're 6'5" at the point guard, 6'7", 6'6", just guys that are long and tall all over the place. And the way Fred Hoiberg has set up this defense, he kind of forces you to shoot more threes unless you find a way to get a wide open layup. Now, like there haven't been a whole lot of mid-range shots. It's weird that his defense doesn't force a lot of mid-range, and on offense, he doesn't want to take a lot of mid-range. So I'm interested to see what Izzo dials up this week, knowing that this Nebraska, especially on the defensive side, looks different but plays the same than what Nebraska has had over the last couple of years. They're bigger and just fit this mold a little bit better. How does Michigan State attack that?
In terms of Michigan State size, I mentioned Kohler. He's 6'9", and he's their leading rebounder. And then the center, Zappala, who Bigelow mentions on the Discord chat, he began his career at Utah State with Raleigh. Raleigh was in the same freshman class as him. Zappala's from Poland, but he's a 7-footer.
Yeah,
he's playing 15 minutes a game. So they'll have size there among those two guys. And then Carson Cooper is their other big, who's kind of their backup big, but he's 6'11". So they do have some size. And then, kind of after that, Fiddler's at 6'7", and he's the next guy bringing down boards.
Yeah,
really on this team.
Well, so. and here's going to be something to watch. Nebraska through 7 games is out rebounding its opponents by just more than five a game. Michigan State is out rebounding its opponents by 10 a game.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. Other than that St. Mary's game, Kaleb, and I know there were ones where the numbers ended up being closer, but Nebraska looked like they could kind of have what they wanted on the boards a lot of the time. Like in general, I know there were individual plays where they didn't come away with it. There were a few times South Dakota, I know, got some offensive rebounds, but in general, again, other than St. Mary's and including that Creighton game, on the defensive end, especially, Nebraska really was getting the way. Now St. Mary's had a lot of putbacks on offensive rebounds. They had a lot of, and they were doing a lot of scoring inside. And so this is important for Nebraska for the Big Ten to go up against this kind of a this is the type of team you're going to be able to have to do that to as well. And this is frankly, Kaleb, why you change your roster a little bit to be able to match up with these teams. Now you get to see if you put together a team that can do it. And you got to have Braxton Mia play big again, right? And you got to have the Creighton Braxton Mia, I think, in this game again.
Yeah, it's how many times over the first couple of years with Fred Hoiberg, and I know he went through kind of the philosophical change on the way he needed to build this roster, the types of players you needed to have, all of those things, the way he needed to play. But how many times did we say this just isn't, they don't fit the Big Ten mold? This doesn't look like a Big Ten team. And I know, like, when you think about football, it was like you had to build a certain way to play in the Big Ten West. And that was just the way you had to be. Well, in Big Ten basketball, and this is where I'm going to be interested to see what it looks like with the West Coast teams when they get in, because it's not necessarily that basketball is a super different style, just we know what things are officiated like in the Big Ten. We know what you're allowed to do with your bigs, and the way a lot of these rosters are built, the way especially like Purdue has dominated the league the last few years because they built that roster around Zach Edey, and they got another big dude. And obviously they took a loss, but we'll see how that continues to go. But that's been the mold. You have a big guy, you get some talented wings, and then at least have a point guard who can handle a little bit. And sometimes you've got an All-American point guard, and they move some stuff around. But Fred has started to take this team more towards that mold than what he initially did the first couple of years. You've got a 6'5" point guard, you've got the bigs who can battle inside, and you've got talented wings. Now what does it look like when you go against someone who has been around the Big Ten a long time with Izzo on Saturday?
Yeah, it feels like this is the kind of game that this different roster was built for. And it'll be really interesting to see how they hold up. Now, again, I'll mention this again, and I don't know if there's an update. Last I heard, Berkay is still a question mark in terms of his availability. Have you heard anything?
We'll see how he practices. We'll see how practice goes today.
You'd like to have him for this game. It didn't matter a ton against North Florida, but you'd like to have him, I think, for this game. Because remember, Kaleb, if we think this is most similar stylistically to St. Mary's, that was the first game where Berkay really kind of showed out, I thought, was in that St. Mary's game.
Yeah, he looked good.
That was when you're like, okay, this guy, this starting to get a sense of who he would be. So to me, that's a really big deal in this matchup against Wisconsin, whether or not he's going to be able to go with that groin injury or whatever it is, where he was holding himself while he walked down the court against South Dakota.
I also think a big difference from the St. Mary's game and even the Creighton game, to be honest, is Connor Essegian has gotten hot.
Yes. Holy cow.
Hot. Back-to-back 20-plus points, back-to-back 6 threes in a game, which hasn't been done in more than 20 years for Nebraska, to have a player hit 6 threes in back-to-back games. He has started to play really, really well. And when he's hitting shots now, the overall three-point percentage is obviously higher than it was through the first 5 games.
Yeah. How about this? Second leading scorer on the team for the season, 14.7 points per game, 3-point percentage right now for the season, 44%. Also getting 2.7 rebounds and a half a steal a game as well. You compared, Kaleb, after the North Florida game, his numbers through 7 to Keisei Tominaga's, and he compared very favorably from this year to Keisei's first 7 games last year.
Yeah, he does. So Keisei through the first 7, and so here is what Connor Essegian is doing through the first 7 games. 5 less starts, about 2 to 3 less minutes a game.
He's 21.4 minutes per game.
Almost 1 more point per game. The same number of 20-point performances. 7 overall more threes, so that's 1 more made 3 per game. He's shooting 10% better from deep, 4 more overall rebounds, 4 more assists, and 2 less steals. So if you look at one thing that Keisei did better through the early part of the year, is he helped out, I think, a lot more on those doubles on the backside. And he went in and kind of scraped out a couple of steals.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm fine with that from Essegian. Like, if you're looking at that's your 1-to-1 replacement for productivity on the floor, Essegian's playing well through 7.
Yeah, it's a little wild. If you look at Essegian is 5th on the team in minutes right now. Between it goes Bryce, Raleigh, Juwan, Berkay, and then Essegian's at 24. Hoiberg is behind him at 17. And you do wonder if he continues to be this much of a scoring threat, like the second scoring threat on the team, behind Bryce, do you want to get him on the team, or do you want to get him on the field more? Do you want to start him in some of these games? And I guess that's going to depend on the matchup. Like, I don't think they'll start him if they have Bear K. I don't think they'll start him against Michigan State, although if they don't, they might. But that's just going to be a question of matchups, probably.
Right. Yeah. And that's I'm going to be really interested to see if they want to do that, or if they want to stay with him being kind of that sixth man, to where he's really good coming off the bench. And that's not something that you want to get kind of messing with your rotation too much if it's working. Because that's one of the things that I go back to. Like, my dad was a varsity basketball coach for almost more than 3 decades. And there were times that we would play on some of those all-star teams. I started all but 2 games in high school for varsity. Yeah, it was a smaller school. But when we would go to play on some of these all-star teams, he knew what he was getting if I came off the bench first. And like, it's really good to have that guy, because so if you start a season, who are you sitting? Like that's the other conversation. Then, okay, who is it that you're going to bring off the bench first, but you don't have them out there to start? Is it Juwan? Are you bringing Juwan Gary off the bench?
You're not. Juwan's always starting.
Are you bringing Bryce Williams off the bench?
Bryce and Worcester are always starting. Those 3 are for sure. And then if Mia's going to be your big that starts, as he has been generally, it would be maybe that 4 spot, unless you're playing a small team, and then maybe you go Bear K as a big. You leave Mia on the bench, and maybe you slide him over that way. That might be the way that you do it. But it probably depends on matchups. Yeah,
and I don't see that being a starting lineup in the Big Ten.
Right. And I don't know that it matters. Like, I don't know that it matters. I just wonder if at some point he's scoring so much, he's becoming such a focus of the offense that you just can't afford not to maximize how often he's out there, and that would include starting.
Well, yeah, and I think in one of the things Hoiberger said, and Bigelow has brought this up on After Nebrasketball, is that it's not necessarily who's starting, it's who's finishing. Like, who are the guys that are out there when you need them out there?
Right.
You can not start the game and still play 30 minutes.
Right.
And so there's ways for him to have increased usage without starting the game, with still coming off of the bench and being that instant offense where you're getting to some of their subs. And you come in, you knock down a couple of shots, and they go, wait, well, maybe we need to get our starters back out there, give them a little bit less rest early on. And I think he's just such a weapon as a sixth man. I really like the way they have that starting rotation set up when everyone's healthy.
Kaleb, I want to go through a few guys and kind of see what our, especially after the last 3 games, we haven't talked for a while. I mean, they've played almost twice as many games since we've talked than they had before, and see how you're kind of thinking about some of these individual players for Nebraska, how, what we found out that they do well, don't do well, and things we've learned about them. I'm just going to kind of go down the list here. Raleigh Worcester, thoughts on Raleigh Worcester? 24 minutes a game. He's getting 8 points a game, only 2.6 assists per game. So that number isn't real high, but decent. He is getting 4.4 rebounds a game. Like, he's getting more rebounds than Bryce is per game, for instance, shooting 27% from threes, taking a few threes out there. Your initial thoughts on, is Raleigh kind of the prototypical point guard you thought that he was going to be?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's turned it over a little bit more than I would have liked. He's getting 2 turnovers a game right now through these first 7. So I think that part of it bothers me. I don't like when he takes a 3 unless he is absolutely wide open and it's like end of shot clock type of thing. But he handles the ball fairly well. I think there are times that he would have more assists if guys would have made more shots. Think about how poorly the team shot over the first 5 games. So there's a lot of missed opportunity for him to have more assists already there. But that 6'5", like it is shown itself, like you mentioned, with the rebounding numbers, with the way he's able to defend out on the perimeter and then come inside and help a little bit. That 6'5" has really shown itself.
Yes.
Just like you and I were talking about in preseason of saying that's a big deal. It's not nothing to be like, oh, it's a taller point guard than what you've had. No, it's shown up big through the first 7. I'm interested to see now, what is that going to look like in the Big Ten?
I was going to say the exact same thing. His size is I mean, he's playing like a 6'5" guy. And what does that mean? I mean, to some degree, it means if he's ever going to, be challenging for a triple double, the rebounds are going to be easier to get than the assists for him, at least from what I've seen so far with him, because he pulls down a lot of boards. But the other thing is when he's playing against smaller competition, is he has been able to go inside and score, and not just like not kind of doing the thing where he's driving in and just has a great finish, just by being the bigger guy down there is where he's gotten a lot of those. The other thing I would say about him is I kind of like, he's a real different style point guard than Aaron Eulis is. And I don't know if I can even totally define it. And I right now I look at this as a positive. I might change the way I look at it later in the year, but it does feel like when you switch between those two guys, the offense has a very different rhythm and different pace to it between the two.
It does. Yeah. It feels like, so Wooster is there more to organize the offense, get everyone where they need to go, the field general that's out there. Eulis feels like the scrambler. Like he's going to try to get a couple off the bounce and then find someone on the perimeter, a little bit more of the drive and kick. So it is a little bit different if you're a opposing defender and you have the point guard. That's just what you're defending for your position. And you're guarding the 6'5" guy who's just kind of organizing things and passing it around and like he'll drive in and back someone down if he has to. And then you bring in this other guy who's shorter, a little bit quicker, a little bit squirrely. When you compare the two, you're like, okay, just different styles. I like it. It's a little bit of a change up when you go to that.
Yeah. That's kind of what I've noticed. And
Eulis has handled the ball well too. He's got almost 2 assists a game. And he hasn't turned it over at the same rate either.
Yeah. No, he's played fewer minutes, but yeah, his stats aren't all that different than Raleigh other than rebounds for the most part. So that's been interesting. Neither of them are shooters really. And that's, that's fine. That's fine. But you also I haven't gotten the sense that either of them, there was kind of this thought Nebraska doesn't have a true point guard. They've got to have this person that is in there to distribute, that are always looking to distribute. I don't get that feeling with any of them, either of those two yet at this point. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or not, but it doesn't feel, incredibly different than what we've seen out of this offense the last couple of years in terms of just that point guard or no point guard.
No, I go back to in the Fred Hoiberg era, the single best point guard that Nebraska had was Alonzo Verge against Colorado in the exhibition. Like that was the point. Like if you could bottle that and have that point guard the full time, that's the best point guard that you were going to have. Like Griesel was good. Like let's not like he was again tall guy. He could organize the offense. He could back guys down. But Nebraska doesn't have that Alonzo Verge exhibition against Colorado point guard. They've got a lot closer to what Griesel was. But I do think overall between these two, like it's good. You've got some guys out there that are pass first distributors that are going to handle the ball and not just make a mess of things, turning it over in large amounts. And ultimately that's what you want, is someone who's not going to go out there, just make a ton of mistakes and is going to try to put people in position to be successful. And you've had that, especially the last couple of games with Connor Seagen, and Bryce Williams has been your leading scorer on the year.
I'm grouping Bryce and Juwan together just because, and you don't have to talk about them together necessarily, but the thing I noticed with them, and is Creighton, it's all of the last few games, is just they look like they are, I mean, they play, they don't necessarily look like this, but they play like they're, like 30 years old, in that they're just like, they just feel, and I don't mean that as, I mean that as a compliment, right? I mean that as they look like they've been doing this forever, is what it looks like to me with those two. And they both, and Juwan especially, man, that team just plays so much better in every aspect of the game. I assume his plus minus is the highest on the team. Now there's somebody to look it up and I'll be wrong, but it feels like that team is so much better when he's in the game. And I'll be reminded, of when I would go away from games last year and I would say to you guys, I think he is the most important. He is the best. he is the best overall player on the team. And I still get that feeling. I can't totally put it into words, Kaleb, exactly what it is. It's good defense. It's strong rebounding. It's the ability to score when he needs to. It's all of these things.
Yeah. So first on Bryce, which by the way, he looks like he lost about 15 years of age when he shaved the beard.
Yeah, no kidding.
So there's that part of it. But yeah, one of the things we said before the season was Bryce Williams has got to be the guy scoring the basketball most nights for you to be successful. And he's averaging 18 a game. Okay, good. Like you're in line right there to meet that pre-qualification that we said. But you're right on Juwan Gary. That is when he is out there, maybe he's taken a couple more threes than he would have liked at times, but he's also made a couple. But he does so many things just right on the basketball floor, especially defensively. Like that's kind of where he is. He's got a little bit of the glove. You know, he'll go lock guys down. He helps out really well. He talks, he organizes everyone. But those guys being in the system, this has been something that you've noticed a few years in a row now. What did you get out of Derek Walker? Well, he was in the system for a couple of years, and he started to play really, really well. Obviously, Sam being a walk-on, but his dad being the coach, he's in the system, so things look good when he's out there. Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary being elite guys,
yes.
all Big Ten type of guys, plus being in the system, things start to look really good, and things look easy for them a lot of times on the floor. And when things look easy for, say, like Bryce Williams scoring the ball, things are going really well for your team. When things look easy for Juwan Gary and everything happening on the defensive end, things are going really well for your ball club. So those two guys, I like that you grouped them because they are kind of the old heads. They've been around, and there's all of this new and everyone that's kind of coming in, or they're getting more minutes off of the bench, or they've got a little bit of a different role. With Bryce and Juwan, they're the guys. They go out, they do their job, and the team has been successful so far.
Yep, for sure. And I still, and Bryce Bryce still doesn't do it in a super. Sometimes you get on transition and you'll make a move that wows you, or he'll make an impressive kind of fadeaway or hit it. He just doesn't do his scoring in a super spectacular way a lot of times. And I guess a part of that is because, he's got 50 free throws attempts this year. So that's a lot. He's made 45, right, for 49 on the line this year.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's a huge part of it as well. But that's still one thing. Like, I still feel like and I don't know if he sort of self-restricts a little bit, but I feel like he could really go off more spectacularly at some point. I still feel like they could let him go a little bit. If you know what I mean.
Think about the guys that are like the leading scorer. They're the guy for their team. How many times they get the ball and you just go, yeah, he's going to go score the basketball.
Yeah.
Now. I don't get that a lot from Bryce.
Right.
There are times that he kind of ends up there where it's end of a shot clock and he kind of backs someone down. He'll take a jumper here. But you're right. I don't really get that he's going to go just break someone down, step back three. Mm-hmm. He's going to cross someone over, go dunk it down the lane. Like can he do those things? Yes. Will we see him do those things? Yes. But he's not coming down floor going, I just hit 2 threes in a row. I dunked it the possession before. I stole the ball from you here. Guess what? I'm going to go score again. Like that's not him.
Right. It's really interesting because you just don't see, for better or worse, you don't see a lot of guys that are like that. Now, like I remember, Kaleb, the time I thought I saw it was actually a weird time in the NCAA tournament game when Nebraska couldn't get anything done offensively. And he sort of took over in that game, trying to get them back into it and had some success, maybe a couple of other times this year. I feel like I do want to see more of that from him. But he's still averaging almost 20 points a game so far this year. But I think he's going to be still better than he's shown us during the course of this game this year. We haven't seen a ton of Berke because he's been hurt since we last talked, Kaleb. Obviously, great in game he played. And any additional thoughts on kind of him and what his role exactly will be? Because I still feel like I don't totally know with him.
No, he's a really special and unique player in the way that he can play the 4, and then they'll go different stretches and play him at the 5, and what that means for the rest of the lineup. So he's really intriguing in what he can do for an entire lineup and the things that he can do. He moves tremendously well defensively. Like you talk about his lateral movement. And I think there's going to come a point where we see him try to score the ball more if he gets some mismatches, because he can shoot it from outside. Like, he's got a good touch. And I think there's going to be some other times where we see him post some guys up really well. He's an intriguing player that we've only seen him in 6 games, like you said, because he's been hurt and not even a full 6. But it's going to be interesting to see what does he look like going against Big Ten bigs. Yeah. What does he look like going against some of the more power 4 size than what he even saw against like Creighton? What is it going to look like when he's going against these guys that are built to be physical? That's their job. They're going to go out there and they're going to physical around. But I really like him. If he's on the floor, I feel like things are like Nebraska's got a good chance.
Yeah. I hope he can play against Michigan State for all the reasons you just said. I think it would be got to be important for Nebraska in that game, as I said earlier, with that kind of a matchup. We talked about Essegian, Hoiberg. I don't know anything new on Hoiberg. I still think he's a little. Especially at the beginning of the year, and maybe a little less so. He felt a bit gun shy on offense when he had opportunities. I think he's got to get rid of that. Like.
He has, and he's had a couple of turnovers. And I don't know if he's just trying, like, he's pressing and he's trying to be too good at his role.
Yeah,
and it's like, hey man, it's okay to play basketball.
It's okay to score, man. It's okay to score because he's good. I mean, listen, he'll get rejected occasionally, but he's generally good at finishing. I don't want to bomb in threes like crazy, but he hit one against South Dakota.
Yeah.
But I think it's sometimes I'll see him. I'm like, man, you got a path to the basket, dude. Go take it. You'll make that. I've seen a few times where he hasn't done that. So, but otherwise, he got his signature kind of pick 6 play against South Dakota, right? Yeah. Which he's done a lot of this. He's come in and he's given them good minutes this year, and I assume more minutes than he's put in during a season. He's 17.9, right? He's the 6th guy. He's the 6th guy in terms of minutes right now. He's getting more minutes than Mia or Morgan at this point during the season.
Yeah.
And then that gets us to Mia. I'll be shouting out him for a long time because of that Creighton game, Kaleb. He was a big part. We joke, we fling crap because Kalkbrenner had 1 field goal attempt, and Mia for a lot of the game was a huge part of that.
Yeah, he was. The game plan was overall. The game plan worked the way Fred Hoiberg wanted it to work. But you can have all of those other pieces. You can have the guards and forwards helping out and doing all the things they need to do. But Mia inside, like, you had to have the big guy do that. You couldn't have the big guy just not deflect a pass, not steal a pass when they're trying to lob things in. All the other help and stuff can happen. But if your big guy doesn't do his job, then that wasn't going to work. And he came out and did his friggin' job.
Yep.
And he did it so well. He was bruised up all over his body, scratches and bruises after that game because he put in work against, we're going to make fun of Kalkbrenner. I get it. But that is a physical dude. And to go put in those minutes against him and hold him to only scoring 4 points at the free throw line, that is a job. How do you get that out of Mia every game? How do you get that mentality of I'm shutting somebody down every game, defending inside like your life depended on it? I don't know that we've necessarily seen that. There are also times on offense that he brings the ball down. I know like Andrew Morgan does it a little bit too. It's like you guys are 7 foot tall. Don't bring the ball down below your shoulder because that's where everyone else is. Like they can defend you if you do that, whether or not they're a big. So I think there's still some killer mentality that needs to happen for Mia offensively. But man, if you can get that defensive, nobody's getting a bucket, especially not my guy mentality that he had at the Chai, you're in a good position for him going forward.
And he only played 11 minutes in that game. I didn't even realize that. It was fewer than I thought, but he had 6 rebounds in that 11 minutes. That was the only game where he really got in foul trouble or close to foul trouble. He did have 4 fouls. I thought that would be a problem with him throughout the year. It hasn't, partly because he's not getting a ton of minutes, because I think they're still a little worried about his conditioning. I'd like them to be able to give him more minutes if they feel like they need him and they want him out there in those matchups. And the other thing is, I think they're figuring out how to use his size on offense. But I mean, South Dakota game, it was ridiculous the amount of times they would be able to get him set up. I mean, he dunked it 6 times, right? Wide open dunks 6 times during the course of.
Well, and the way the rotation is gone is you get a lot of 1-to-1 rotation with Mia and Morgan, and then at times because of Berkey's versatility, they slide him to the 5. So what happens then? Mia and Morgan both get less minutes because of it.
Yeah.
But they got to do their job when they're out there.
Yep. And then I guess that brings us to Morgan. He's playing about the same minutes as Mia, averaging more points a game. He's got 7.6 points per game. He actually has more rebounds per game too than Mia as well. And so I don't know. I don't know yet. Morgan has been. I still don't have a great feel on him. Like a couple of times at the beginning of the years, I was like, okay, that guy's going to be able to score. He's got moves. He's got a little finesse down low. I haven't really felt either way about him kind of since I had those feelings early.
That's the same for me. That's the same, is that it was like, oh, he's got some good footwork. These could be some good post moves to go into. And then it's just like, okay, you haven't really shown that again. You haven't shown anything that's super special, but you can't teach 6'10". You can't teach a guy that's full of muscle and over 200 pounds. Like, so he's playing his role really well. Him and Mia are playing their roles really well. Can they play those roles better going forward, where you're going to see the big bodies?
Yeah, but again, having those guys is it's such a nice thing on this roster. It's just not a thing this roster has had before, including. I know last year they did have. They had Alec and they had Rank, but it's a real different feeling this year. And then I guess the last one, and here's the one I still don't know what to say about, and that's Gavin Griffiths and Kaleb. I still don't like. I just don't get it. I don't get what he does well, how they can use him. I don't get it. He's not even. I mean, he's not getting shots when he's out there. He's not out there a lot, but he's not getting a ton of shots, and the few that gets, he's not making. And he is so, he's just otherwise physically, he's so small. Like I'm so
thin.
slight, thin.
Yeah.
And so I don't quite understand. I don't know what to get out of him at this point. I feel like there's gonna be some game where he gets hot shooting threes, probably. But.
Yes, that's what's gonna happen. So he's averaging 12 minutes a game. He's shooting 32% from the field, 18% from deep. That's not acceptable for what you want out of him in his role. His role is going to have to be, he's not going to be a volume shooter, but he needs to make a lot more of the shots that he is taking. 2.7 rebounds a game. Okay, it's a rebound every 6 minutes, but he's what, 6'7"? So you've got to find a way to get some more rebounds in there. You're right. If they're like, it's been a little bit of a disappointment. Like, we know he's coming off the bench, and there should be an infusion of energy where he's coming in seventh, or like he's the 7th man or 8th man or 9th man, wherever it is. He's not the first guy off the bench. So what are you going to do when you come in? He just hasn't done a lot.
No.
And I think that's something that we're waiting to see that part develop.
Yeah. 3 for 17 for 3 this year. I mean, I think there is, they've been playing Cale Jacobson more. And I think there's a shot that just because Jacobson plays bigger than he really is, and it brings a little bit of a different defensive what's the word I'm looking presence than Griffiths does. I don't know. I feel like Cale might start stealing more and more of his minutes on.
Yeah, and Cale's played well in the limited minutes he's had.
Yeah. He's and I mean, talk about a guy. Cale looks very different than he did in high school. I would say that. They've got him in the weight room since that time. So
Yeah.
that's kind of it's interesting. Evan Miyakawa does the thing where he does the BPR, which is the Bayesian performance rating of the team. It's the sum of their offensive and defense of Bayesian performance rating. So it's the Miyakawa way, like the ultimate player rating. So they've got Juwan Gary as number 1 on the team.
Okay.
Number 2 is interesting. Number 2 is Raleigh Worcester, which is interesting. And then they've got Bryce, number 3, and Bryce is below those guys just because he's quite a bit lower on defense. Even though he's the highest offensive stat.
That makes sense.
Number 4 is Mia. Again, he's got a very high defensive rating, and that's what puts him up there. And then Berke is number 5. Connor Season is number 6 on those ratings. So that's interesting. Just to kind of see how he puts those out there. Miyakawa, by the way, has Nebraska in his ratings. Now I just went away from the page. I think he had 33 in his computer ratings.
Okay.
So let's see if I got that right there. 39. I'm sorry, 39. Michigan State's 29 on his. And Kaleb, you go into these next 2 games now, and I think this fan base probably looks at them differently than we probably would have talked about them in October. Like, Nebraska's got to get one of. Nebraska's not. They should get one of these. They could get 2, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think that's how they're probably looking at this now.
Yeah, you're not going 0-2 with these because of the way that this team has performed, the way they've shown the different ways that they can play. We'll see if Berke is able to go tomorrow. But yeah, you're looking at this going, you're 1-1 in these conference games at worst. And not 1-1 at best. It's 1-1 at worst. Potentially you get both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because there is going to be a middle of the Big Ten ratings, Kaleb, and it is going to involve, anywhere from 2 games over 500 to 2 games under 500 in the league. And it is going to include about 13 teams. It's going to be a ton. It is going to be a ton. I mean, you talk about those NET rankings right now. So Nebraska's doing pretty good, right? They're 40th right now. They were in the mid 30s, but that is good for 10th in the league. There are 9 teams, and Michigan State's 1 behind them. Yeah. In those rankings, you got Illinois, Oregon, Maryland, UCLA, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Purdue, Nebraska, and so it's going to be these close games. These games like Northwestern had a shot to beat Iowa in, right? Mm-hmm. And these games like Maryland losing that game like they did to Ohio State. Those games between those teams in the middle, and I think Michigan State and Indiana are both going to be in that group in terms of the overall standings here. In fact, I don't know. I don't know who's outside of that group, to be honest, right now. I might be able to tell at the bottom. USC is 5-4, Minnesota 6-4, maybe Washington at 6-2, right? And then I guess you got Illinois and Oregon clearly at the top, maybe UCLA. Then other than those teams I said at the bottom of the top, that's the squishy middle, right?
That's like there's 13, 14 teams in the middle that you didn't name.
Yeah. Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Purdue, Nebraska, Michigan State, Iowa, Indiana, Northwestern, Rutgers, probably.
How do you separate yourself? Just
right
a
now,
little
at least. Yeah. Going 2-0. I mean, it would. You can't go 0-2. You just can't at this point. But they also don't look. They look more winnable than I think we thought. Indiana's those fans got to be so mad they didn't fire Woodson after last year.
They have.
They are going to be raging.
Yeah.
This year with Woodson, the fact that, and they'll get better, I'm sure. They've got good players, they got good athletes, but they've struggled to start out the season for sure. They're at 67 on this NET ranking, 6-2 during the course of the year. So we'll see. We will see. And boy, you win both of those games, Kaleb. You're probably going in, if you could do it, probably going into Hawaii as a ranked team, I assume, and the clear favorite to win that tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, if you get both of these, you're headed to Hawaii ranked for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're already like 39th or
they're close. They keep getting more votes each week.
Those would be 2 wins that would probably do it. So it's going to be fun. It's boy, that Creighton win changed everything. It really did. And for a while I was worried after Creighton struggled so much in Vegas that maybe wasn't going to look like a great win, but the Kansas, as much as it pained me to see all the joy, the Kansas win helps out with that quite a bit.
Yeah, it does. So Nebraska, Michigan State, 11 o'clock tip on Saturday, and then around 1:30, we will get going with After Nebrasketball, both of us and Jacob Bigelow. Before the game, though, you guys have got your Saturday morning coffee.
That's right. Saturday morning coffee will be at 9:30 for championship weekend. Of course, no Nebraska game, but we'll talk about. I'm sure there'll be more news to talk about. There's been news every day with Nebraska football. Maybe have even a better idea. I think they're probably going to New York City, but we'll talk about that bowl news that we've got. And then, yeah, like you said, 9:30 games get going. And then if you want to put us on your second screen after the basketball game while you're watching football, or listen to us while you're watching football, that'd be great, because I think it'll be fun to break down that Michigan State game, especially if they can get a win. And the good thing about it, Kaleb, as you said, it's a road game for all three of us. So we will have Bigelow, me, you, all at our homes, and all starting right away. So
yes,
all three of us will be together right off the bat to start breaking that down. So we're excited to have Bigelow with us right off the bat. So that will be great. Yeah, there you go. And if you want to be a live studio audience member that we're referencing, we've been referencing a lot of the chats. Join us on the Discord for the I-80 Club. These are the people who get to interact with us during our shows, and also get to see our exclusive shows, like our Saturday morning coffee one, which is exclusive. You can join us at patreon.com/I-80 Club. If you want to be a member of that, be a member of the Discord, get the exclusive shows on Wednesday night and Saturday morning, which Josh and I will continue to do during the off season. And Kaleb, what else is going on Husker Max?
Just everything you need right at huskermax.com. We've had a lot of fun over the last week or so. Nick Handley has just started a podcast, so all of that's at the Husker Max YouTube page. But of course, the links to that and everything that I-80 provides to us as well at huskermax.com.
All right, cool. We'll see you guys tomorrow for a little post game. It's already tomorrow in Michigan State. Until then, have a great Friday night. Enjoy the volleyball, and we will see you for Husker Hoops tomorrow. See ya.